Hey everybody, Pastor Chris here. Just wanted to give everybody some Epiphany greetings today. Today is the day of Epiphany, January 6th. Not a day we know as well anymore. In fact, I got my first, and my only writing job ever when I wrote a letter to the editor of my seminary school newspaper on how we didn't pay enough attention to Epiphany. And the editor of the paper liked it so much that she brought me on to write a column for them, a weekly column. So people don't realize this, that in the early days of the church, Christmas wasn't celebrated. But somewhere along the line, the leaders of the church decided they needed a winter celebration to be in competition with the winter solstice and all these other pagan and other religious holidays. And so they created Christmas to say this is when we're going to celebrate the birth of Jesus, even though we don't know for sure when it happened. And when they promoted Christmas, actually people took to the streets in some places and marched and protested and complained because it was taking some of the thunder away from Epiphany, which had been really the time that they celebrated their Christmas festival of celebration of Christ. Epiphany is the revealing of Jesus as the Messiah, as the Christ. Generally, it's associated with two different passages in the Bible. One is the coming of the Magi. That we read that a lot at Christmas, but it's really about Epiphany and the revealing of Jesus. And then also the baptism of Jesus and how Jesus was revealed with the heavens opening, the voice from the sky, and the Holy Spirit descending like a dove and settling and remaining on him. So what we're going to do here the next 5 Sundays during the season of Epiphany with the revealing of Jesus, we're looking at the first chapter of Mark. And Mark is different than some of the other Gospels, where in the Gospel of John we'll get an entire chapter about some encounter Jesus had. And then Luke and Matthew will give us maybe 2 paragraphs. We'll get a sentence or two from Mark. Mark really is Jesus in a hurry. Mark packs a lot of stuff into just a few verses. So this Sunday, we're going to look at the opening 11 verses of Mark, chapter 1, verses 1 through 11. And Mark wants us to make sure that we know that Jesus is continuing something started long before he was born. We'll see how Jesus is tied to the Old Testament. In fact, the very opening of Mark, written in Greek, and if we look at the Old Testament, when it's translated into Greek, what the people actually read at the time of Jesus, the openings are very similar. Of course, Genesis begins in the beginning when God created heaven and earth. And the Gospel of Mark in the Greek begins the beginning of the good news of Jesus Christ, Son of God. So Mark is showing us how Jesus is tied to the what happened before him, and he's continuing that on. But then on January 17th, we're going to go on and look at Mark 1, 12 through 20, which is the beginning of Jesus' ministry. And Mark doesn't spend any time on the details of Jesus' family lineage, his birth, his childhood. He jumps right in. This is indicative, as I said, the whole thing, Mark is Jesus in a hurry. But the key point in this section then is that while Mark wants us to know that Jesus is tied to these things before and he's continuing them on, he's also starting something new. What Jesus is doing is different than anything God has done before. Then on our third Sunday of Epiphany, January 24th, we'll look at Mark chapter 1, verses 21 to 28, and we'll see Jesus' first act of power. He confronts an unclean spirit, or we would maybe say in normal speak, just a man who is demon-possessed. But if that wasn't enough, this man is actually possessed by this unclean spirit right in the middle of a worship service in their synagogue. So this is an indicator of the state of things when Jesus arrived. Things were in such decay that a demon-possessed person was free to just come in and come into their worship services unhindered. And so then Mark has established that Jesus is tied to what came before, but he also shows that he's starting something new. But in the passages, verses 21 to 28, he shows us that Jesus has power even over these spiritual beings. Then the last Sunday of January, the 31st of January, we look at Mark 1, 29 to 39. In this passage, Mark wants us to know the extent of Jesus' authority over the physical world. He shows that Jesus has the power over the physical world by healing people of many different illnesses, things that the people were powerless against. Jesus comes in and heals them. And finally, our last Sunday of Advent, continuing here in Mark chapter 1, verses 40 to 45, this will be on February 7th, Mark reveals the last piece of the puzzle, and that is why Jesus came and what he is using all this power and authority to accomplish. We find and that is to reunite us with God, to make us acceptable before God. And there's one of the things I love about Mark's gospel is how much he can pack into such a small package. In just these 45 verses, we really learn everything we need to know about who Jesus is and why he came. And then the rest of Mark's gospel is really just seeing this work and this plan come to fruition for Jesus making us acceptable before God, making us fit to come into God's presence. So I want to also give a huge thank you to Nancy Wheaton and all of those who helped with the Christmas CETA program. It was a big success. We had Word of Life had, I think, 23 people, 23 kids that we adopted and bought presents for, and that's part of a larger movement within the community. And a big thank you to First Lutheran Church, who opened up their basement where CETA didn't have room for this anywhere else in their new facilities, and so they were able to do it there. That is just, it's just so great to see so many different groups within the community coming together to help those in need. Also want to encourage you to check out The Well, which if you drive down Highway 1 towards the church, you'll see where they are. They have bought the building where Foursquare Church, it's still there. The congregation sold the building to The Well, and then they rent back a portion where they have their worship and they have their church. But most of it now is The Well. They got some really exciting stuff there for just to make Fairfield an even better place to live. Excuse me. And helping out people in need. So I encourage you to check that out. You can also just search on the internet for The Well, Fairfield, Iowa, and you'll find that. They're on Facebook too. Lots of good stuff there. And then finally, on January 19th, we're going to have our annual meeting where we look back at 2020 and what happened, and we look ahead 2021, what we hope to plan, or what we are planning and hope to have happen. We're still working on the details of exactly what it will look like, if people will be here or not. Those decisions haven't completely been made. No matter what, it will be live streamed. It will be available online. We want to make sure everybody has all the normal abilities they have of having their voice heard and being included and knowing of what is going on here at Word of Life. So look for more details on that coming out very soon, but I guess technically this is your official first notification on that on January 19th at 6 o'clock in the evening, or rather, I'm sorry, 7 o'clock on January 19th will be our annual meeting. So with that, I just want to say to everybody to have a happy Epiphany and live in God's blessing. Thanks.